Morning guys, hopefully you're all doing well. It is currently first thing Monday morning. We've got the rusty 156 on the ramp and it's time to strip everything off it today, getting it ready to go into the donor car. So I thought, as being you haven't seen the underneath of it, let's get it up in the air and see what is actually holding it together. That's if it will go in the air on the ramp anyway without falling in half.
So one last look over this rotten shell before we cannibalise it to make one good car out of the two.
Yeah, there's nothing even holding the B-pillar to the sill apart from what's left of the inner sill. The fitment of this is absolutely shocking. And the strengthening beams would do pretty much sod all in the event of an accident because they've been welded on each end. And it doesn't look like they may have just welded a bit from the inside onto these, but yeah, they do nothing in the case of an accident anyway because they just fold up. Right, we've got some chassis stiffening things going on there. Oh, fucking hell, it moved. Yeah, no, I don't want to be under this for very long because it is not very safe at all. I mean, look at the way that sill has collapsed when I've jacked it up on the jacking point. Probably because there's nothing there to jack it to. Let's just make sure. Yeah, we've got some inner sill there. It's on, so we should be okay. But yeah, even this sill has rotted away. So this isn't actually a car I want to be under for very long. So I want to get this engine out as quick as I can. I'm going to get all four wheels off it. Take the engine complete with subframe and suspension and wishbones and brakes off all together. I've never done that before, so it's going to be interesting, the logistics of getting it all out in one. So it should technically be easier, but as I've never done it before, it might be a bit more of a challenge. But when it comes to taking the donor car apart and putting everything into that, it should hopefully make it one hell of a lot easier rather than rebuilding all the subframe, suspension and everything. So it should save a few hours in the long run. Rear subframe and suspension is all going to come off as one as well, so I'll get that back on. We've got to take off the boot lid, the front bumper, the headlights, loads of upgrade parts. I've actually got 6 pages of things the customer wants me to do and remove and swap over. Most of them will happen automatically when the engine is swapped over because it's not coming off the engine. The gearbox and engine are all going to stay complete. I'm just going to have to swap the wiring loom over. So let's start by removing the wheels, the under tray and the front bumper.
So starting by removing the wheels, there are 5 19mm nuts on these. They came off nice and easily. These wheels are going to be going on the donor car as well. And then we'll move on to the pesky aluminium under tray, which has tons and tons of various size bolts holding it on. So it was a little bit of a nightmare to remove, but it does add a little bit of aerodynamics to it when you're on the track, I suppose. Tray is now finally off, and now we shall move on to removing all the front grills and the bolts for the front bumper, so we can drop that out of the way, giving us access to the radiator support and also the headlights. And now front bumper is loose, we just have to undo a couple of the connections and one water connection, which was a little bit pesky to undo, and I'd also forgot to have a bucket there, so I did get the floor rather wet. Now, if you guys remember from a video from probably getting on for 2 years ago now, we did fit a stupidly expensive exhaust to this with equal length downpipes and 4 branched manifolds on each side, or 6 branch manifolds. So the exhaust did come off fairly easily. Some of the rubbers are a little bit tight, and as you can see, there's quite a few of them holding this exhaust into place. Some of them, like this one here, was quite tough to get off, so I had to resort to the hammer and pry bar to get it off, but we did get there in the end. I think there's 3 holding the back on, and then another one at the front, and then it can finally all come loose. Just undoing the final mount now, so the exhaust is now free, but unfortunately it is trapped behind the rear subframe. So I'm going to undo 4 of those bolts now, let it hang free, and let the exhaust hang with it until I'm ready for the rest of the subframe to come off. And now on to the last 4 bolts holding the exhaust to the manifolds. Again, these are straightforward to come off. They're just 4 15mm nuts and bolts holding it on, so at least they're at the right point, so I can still drop the engine down with them in place, rather than having to remove the springs which hold the downpipes to the manifold, because that they are, from what I remember, they were quite tough to reach and get out.
Still alive, and I've been under the car for 5 minutes. So exhaust is all disconnected now. That can be dropped down once the engine's out. It's disconnected from the manifold, so that will make life a lot easier. Off camera, I have disconnected the power steering rack, so I can start to drop the engine now. So I need to get my forklift out, a big pallet to support everything, and undo all the bolts on the subframe, top suspension mounts, and then all that will be left to do is like the aircon, power steering and stuff like that, and then it should drop down. So fingers crossed, in about an hour the engine should be out.
Now, there's not much holding the front subframe on. You've got 6 18mm nuts, 2 15, and various ones holding the power steering rack on and anti-roll bar, and then the wishbone bolts, but luckily none of those have to be undone apart from the bare essential few to drop this subframe down. So it's literally just 10 bolts, I think, just to get this subframe loose. One of the things that does annoy me about Alfas of this generation is they have put the gear selector housing below the subframe, so whenever you've got to remove the subframe, you've got to let down the gear housing. Now, if they just designed it slightly differently and didn't bolt them together so they didn't have to interfere with each other, it would make my life one hell of a lot easier, and would have probably saved me days of labour over the past 15-20 years of working on Alfas. I thought I'd leave this long pouring for you. You can pause it now and go use the toilet if you want to. Now just removing the millions of cable ties that were dotted around the car, so I can get to the brake pipe and remove anything which is stopping the subframe dropping down complete. including the arch liners, so I can get behind there and reach the ABS sensors and tuck those through the wing without yanking on them and ruining them, because I do believe they are quite hard to get hold of now. So just cutting and crimping the brake pipe so fluid doesn't leak everywhere, and then eventually it will come free from its mount. They're always really tough to undo. Should have used a hammer, but anything in your hand will do when you need to strike something. Headlights now coming off because they are a little bit yellowy and they do have some fancy bulbs inside them, so I'll be swapping them over when it's rebuilt and popping in the better headlights of the two I've got. Power steering fluid is coming out now, and at least I remember to put a bucket down to catch the fluid. But unfortunately, when you are doing jobs like this, it is messy. You've got gearbox oil to come out, coolant, power steering, engine oil normally, and plenty of water on these V6 engines, so you do always end up making a right mess on the floor. But I do use some absorbent granules to soak up the excess water once I've finished the job. Now we're just going to be accessing the sort of the gearbox area, so we can remove the clutch pipes and the gear cables. First of all, we need to remove the battery, 2 10mm on that, and then a couple more 10mm on the battery tray themselves, and then a few more 13mm, and then that is free to come out, and then we can access everything we need to from underneath. While I'm down here, I might as well disconnect a lot of the wiring and pull it back through to the bulkhead so that doesn't get caught when you're removing the engine. One of the big differences between the two cars is this fuel pipe is screwed on, whereas the donor car, it is clipped on with a clip, but unfortunately that means I need to swap fuel rails over as well. I'm also going to need to swap over loads of other sensors because all the connectors are different between the years. Hydraulic line now coming off, but we don't mind about the fluid coming out of here because this car is going outside to be scrapped. At least it was nice and free and hadn't seized up. I don't know much about the slave cylinder because I haven't tried to get that off yet, but actually I don't think I'll need to because the gearbox isn't going to be separated from the engine. So at least that's one job I haven't got to worry about when it comes to putting it back in. So we're now at the point where the engine can come out. All that's holding it in is 5 engine bolts because I've taken one of the mount bolts out. So let's get these out and hopefully the engine will drop nice and easily. I do think the power steering knuckle thing on the inside of the car is a bit stuck, so that might take some effort to get out. One side free. And that noise was just one of the brake pipes which had got caught, that had cut, and it had got wrapped around the drive shaft and it just yanked itself free.
Engine is out, all looks fine. No damage caused, no wires missed and pulled and cut. When it comes to taking the donor car, the main car engine out, I am going to have to take off the subframe and everything because the customer wants the gearbox off that one, which is fair enough. But I am worried about how easy it is going to be. I am worried about how easy it is going to be to line everything up with everything off there with it going in and how awkward it's going to be. So yeah, I mean, this is all stripped down now. If you can have a look inside there. I've taken the rest of the aircon pipes out because he's going to want those swapped over. And now all that's left to do, immediately on the main sort of chassis anyway, is to remove the rear suspension in one. So that's what we're going to do now.
And yes, I know there are quite a few more bolts to undo on the rear subframe, but I didn't record anything else. Just having a quick look around it now, and you can spot some more of the rotten places which I hadn't seen before. And how rotten this floor is. That's the rear chassis leg there, which is a main structural part of the car, which was absolutely rotten.
Scrap shell is finally outside. I had to get a hand off my next door neighbour because my reach truck battery, I think it has seen its best days. So I think we'll call that the end of the show for today. Donor car is stripped down all ready to go. The other car is on the ramp ready for the rear end to be stripped off it and the new rear end put onto it in the next episode, as well as removing the engine, but that'll probably all get done off camera. So when the next episode starts, it'll probably have a rear end on it and the engine removed. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode.